There's an idea that you should play high notes all the time to get used to them. And I want to go over whether this is a myth or not so that you can make your practice more effective. The reasoning behind this idea of play high notes all the time is that if you want to get good at playing high notes, then play more high notes. However, the people that think this don't realize the idea is nuanced and could do more harm than good if applied correctly. It's easier for me to describe an example of a time in which this idea did harm. A few years ago, I was called to do a church gig. The other trumpet player was a guy who I've played with before, but he was a substitute for my usual co-worker. He had heard me before, he likes how I play, so he also trusts my advice regarding music and trumpet. So he asked me a question right after the gig. He asked me, "Hey man, what do I do? I hurt my lips." I asked back, "First, what do you mean you hurt your lips? And second, what were you doing that caused you to get hurt?" To which he replies, "I was working my range, so I was doing long tones in the upper register. Since you know, to improve your range, you need to play more high notes to get used to them." As soon as he said that, I knew exactly what happened and what he needed to do. He had gotten stiff. I will talk about what he needed to do at the end of the video. Another instance in which this idea does more harm than good is during gigs. Now, I don't mean that if a song says to play high notes that you avoid them. What I mean is that you want to attempt playing an octave higher just to see if you can get to them or because you're trying to get used to playing high notes. It might seem obvious that if you're getting paid to play, don't risk messing it up by trying something you can't do. And yet, I see all the time where trumpet players can't reach the high notes and they ruin the music all because of this idea that they should play high notes all the time to get used to the upper register or because of their ego. Moving on, let's talk about when this idea of playing more high notes does apply. This is during practice, consistent and careful practice. This means that you have a routine that includes range studies, both going up and down. That way you don't overdo either the low notes or the high notes. Range studying shouldn't take too long either because this allows you to practice them daily, which results in you playing high notes more consistently and getting used to the upper register. In conclusion, the idea of play high notes all the time to get used to the upper register is not a myth, and yet you must be careful in applying this idea carefully so that you don't negatively affect your trumpet playing. There are many more myths out there regarding how to play the trumpet, so I will be making this a series I simply call the Trumpet Myths. So subscribe so we can talk about what really works to improve our playing. Stay sharp and keep improving.